The Navy I mean, obviously as we alluded to early, landing on the boat, very important and very critical. Got to be able to do that. And obviously without the magic carpet back in the day, very critical. What was the flow? Because you can wash out of training at different points for landing, correct? Like at least in your day where like it completely derail you, or like I mean, I've heard of guys who like started the Hornet and then they go to the boat, I guess based on when it's available, and they don't make it at the boat and then done. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I cannot think of a particular person that happened to, but I remember that being basically the threat. And I think it came down to, well, was it just that, or was it that this person was struggling all along and
Yeah.
needs to do something other than aviation? And if for some reason, as I recall, if a person just couldn't do that one thing, they might give that person a chance in maybe a patrol plane or helicopters or something else. But again, I mentioned it in my book, Through the Yellow Visor. There was a student in the F-18. You guys, I guess, would call it the RTU. We used to call it the RAG, or now the FRS, Fleet Replacement Squadron, who was washed out, but it wasn't because of performance. It was because he got caught in a lie doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. And yeah, I highly doubt they sent that individual to another aircraft. In fact, they might have just excused him out of the military at that point. But if you had a good attitude in your efforts and you just couldn't figure something out, they would usually try to work with you.
Yeah, that was my experience as well. It's usually not just one thing, but it's a culmination of a lot of things. Like if you're on that path where it's not going to work out, but the landing piece, obviously, you got to be able to land, and you know the whole
Yeah.
boat thing is another dynamic that's quite a variable that you had to navigate. When you talked about the T2 transition, the challenge you had there, in what regard did they change the profile of how you landed that you think that made it more challenging for you?
Well, so in the T-34, we landed, as anyone with general aviation experience in your audience can understand, right? You
A
sort of
flare.
set
We
the
call it a flare.
configuration. What's that?
We call it a flare.
A flare, yeah. But also up until that point, and I know how to flare now, Rain. I do fly for
Yeah.
Grandma and Grandpa. Don't like it when I do a carrier landing in my
Yeah.
75. I know your boxes probably don't complain, but
Yeah,
mine
they
do.
don't.
But everything prior to that point is you're trimming it up for an airspeed, and you can kind of fly it like a normal airplane. And I don't mean to oversimplify it. Landing is still a transitionary thing that's, it traditionally is where most mishaps in aviation occur, and we just saw an example of that in Toronto, unfortunately. A carrier landing is different because now you're setting an angle of attack that's optimal for the landing gear and the hook, and then you're trimmed up to that and you're on speed. And then instead of moving the nose to be up or down on glide slope, you're adjusting the throttle. So you're powering up if you're low, or you're cutting a little power. I shouldn't say cutting, but taking a little power off if you're high. And then because we're always training, even at the field for the carrier, which, and again, you haven't been there, I guess, but you've probably at least seen videos or pictures, it's very narrow. So you've got to be perfectly lined up left and right. And then you can't be too far or too short in the groove, which is that physical distance, which isn't dangerous, but it screws up the pattern because they're trying to hurry up and land everyone so that the carrier is not predictable, or it's not running into an island or traffic channels or something. So it's all very dynamic, and you're expected to do it well. I mean, that's just the standard. And for new pilots, a lot of them, like me, struggle with that. And it's just, again, kind of like what I already told you with the bomb dropping thing. When there's that much stuff going on, and then you're supposed to like invoke something to make a correction if you're not doing it well, which I frequently didn't. It's like okay, hold on, I need to do this, and until you get that, what is it, magical 10,000 hours, which doesn't really ever apply to aviators, I feel like, but you've internalized it, you've done simulators, you've done other things to make Malcolm Gladwell happy, that you get that level of experience where that now you don't even really think about it, right? Like when you and I were brand new car drivers, it was everything in your head to just drive the car. Now think about all the things that distract us, which aren't good, but you can do it without really thinking about it.
It's interesting. I've had a couple guys who've been landing signal officers on the podcast, LSOs, and then buddies who've just done it. And talking to them, I'm always impressed of obviously the level of detail from coming up initial, I forget what you call it in the Navy, but the brake, rolling out, everything. I mean, it's timed in a seasoned LSO when someone rolls out on final based on where the deck is. They've already made an assessment if this is going to work or not, and if they can tweak it and correct it. Because all those little details, call them part task trainers. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you probably use the same term, but like the basic surface attack, dropping bombs, making those little corrections, all that stuff, building the airmanship. I'm interested in it. I like those little details and trying to hone, but it is not an easy thing to just be able to nail it. And again, it takes 10,000 reps or whatever it is to be able to internalize that and recognize where you are in space and make the changes probably without even realizing that you're making the changes.
Well, I will say this, Rain. I have no doubt in my mind that you could have done it, because you would have just applied yourself to it, just like you did whatever path you took instead, and you would have learned it. Now, maybe you would have struggled a little like I did, but you could have done it. And I think that's true. It's a function of what do we devote ourselves to. And for some people, it's military aviation. For other people, it's medicine or an instrument. But I don't doubt at all that you could have come out, and a lot of Air Force guys do, by the way, do exchange tours, and they get the practice they need in an F-18 or whatever they're flying, and they make it work. And I have no doubt you could have too.
Wow, no, I'd probably have taken off and never come back, but I just want to do that cat shot. But I did have a buddy who did it, and he has well over 100 landings. And the reason he got it is in the Air Force, we use flight hours to manage the fiscal year and the budget. I think the Navy uses pounds of fuel or gallons of fuel to manage the flight program. And this was back in the day where, hey, we got to get rid of all this fuel. So they're just AB takeoffs out to the water, dumping back, refueling over and over again. But he talked about, he asked his XO, the boat was there, and he just went out one day just doing a bunch of landings, just trying to get over 100. So I think he has 101 landings just so he could say, I have over 100 carry arrested landings.
He's a centurion.
Yeah, so it still counts.